But we are pleased to hear from the BYU Nutrition and Dietetics graduate interns today, and Lauren and Maya, and they will be speaking about fiber. And after the presentation, they will be doing a food demonstration as well as giving you the samples to try the food. So yeah, give a hand for them.
Awesome. Thank you. We're so excited to be here today. My name is Lauren Osborne. I'm from West Jordan originally. I started my education at Utah State for a couple years, and I transferred here and just graduated with my bachelor's in April, and now I'm in the master's dietetics program. And yeah.
All right, my name is Ann Worthland. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been at BYU. This is my 5th year here now, and I also just graduated in April and am in the graduate dietetics internship as well.
And then my name is Maya Hanley. I'm originally from New Mexico, and then just like them, this is our first year as interns here at BYU, so we're super excited.
Awesome. So today we're talking about fiber. And so first we wanted to start by just asking a question about why you maybe chose to come to this class today to learn about fiber, or whatever your reason is. We just wanted to hear from you. Awesome. Well, we'll talk about sources of fiber that you can consume. That'll be great. Any other things that brought you here today? Yeah, we will talk about that today. That's really good. All right. Oh, yes. Yes, we'll talk about all the benefits that come from fiber as well. Awesome. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Well, today we'll talk about fiber and how you can get it in your diet without spending lots of money. So that'll be great. All right.
All right, so I'm actually going to come over here. First of all, we kind of wanted to give you, didn't know the background of digestion throughout the body, and kind of what that looks like and how that's going to relate to fiber. So first of all, the first step of digestion actually begins in our mouth up here. Whenever you eat food, obviously you chew it, it gets ground up and everything in your mouth, and then that travels all the way down to our stomachs. In our stomachs, a little bit of digestion occurs, not much. It's mostly just torn apart, kind of ripped apart into smaller pieces in order to have the body digest it further. And so that's kind of what's happening here in the stomach. And then from the stomach, our food is called chyme. It's just kind of a liquidy mass, kind of a little disturbing. But it travels from our stomach into our small intestine. And this is where most of absorption of things like fiber, not fiber, things such as carbohydrates, protein, and fats are absorbed into the body. So that's the main site of kind of digestion and absorption for normal nutrients, but not fiber. From there, food travels through the small intestine into what we call the large intestine or the colon. And here is where water is absorbed and kind of the finishing touches on digestion occur. And this is where fiber really takes its main course here. A lot of fiber isn't actually digested, but this is where it ferments. This is where it gives us all of the benefits that we'll talk a little bit about later, is mainly here in the large intestine. So kind of just wanted to touch on the breakdown of fiber in the colon or in the large intestine. So our body doesn't actually digest very much fiber, but we do have beneficial gut bacteria that help us out. So inside our bodies, inside of our large intestine, are beneficial bacteria that actually break down the fiber because we can't do it ourselves. We don't have the enzymes to do that. And so this bacteria in our gut will help us break down and release things like short-chain fatty acids and other beneficial nutrients that allow our body to absorb those easier. So we actually really need this beneficial gut bacteria that we have in our stomachs in order to help us get all the benefits that we need from fiber. And up to this point, fiber remains pretty intact within our digestive system. So really quick, just wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits that we get from fiber. So this first point here, it lowers cholesterol. Now this is actually a super interesting process. So we know our liver and our gallbladder release bile, which contains cholesterol, which helps in digestions of fats earlier in the digestive tract. But what fiber does is it actually binds to cholesterol and helps exit the body. Because fiber is not easily digested by our digestive systems, it binds to things and helps transport it outside of the body. So that's actually super beneficial in lowering cholesterol. Fiber also lowers blood glucose levels. And so the way that it does this is it binds to sugars that we're digesting, things like carbohydrates or like sweets and stuff that we consume, and it actually helps it release slower. So sugar is absorbed less quickly, therefore lowering blood glucose levels. This next one, a lot of you probably already knew before coming to this presentation, but it helps with constipation and normalizing bowel movements. It helps add bulk to the food that we eat and so that it's passed more regularly. Fiber also will help us with feelings of satiety. And so what this means is that when we add fiber to our diet, our meals are lasting for a little bit longer. We're feeling a little bit more full with the meals that we eat when we add fiber. Like we just mentioned, fiber also promotes the growth of beneficial bacteria in our gut, and so it's helping all those little microbiome in our gut help us. So we're basically like feeding it in there, and it's actually helping us out when we do that. And then overall, fiber really just benefits and helps us in our overall digestive system health. So we're going to watch a quick video here just to help kind of recap the benefits that we have from fiber.
Dietary fiber is a type of carbohydrate found in the portion of plants that is not digested by enzymes in the small intestine. While you may have heard other names for fiber that include bulk and roughage, be aware that these labels can be misleading because some forms of fiber are not bulky or rough at all. There are two main types of fiber: soluble fiber, which dissolves in water, and insoluble fiber, which does not dissolve in water. Foods with soluble fiber include oatmeal, beans, apples, and blueberries. Examples of insoluble fiber are whole grains, carrots, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Both types are important in maintaining optimal health. There is one more type of fiber called fermentable fiber. Fermentable fiber is fiber that is resistant to digestion and absorption in your small intestine, just like soluble and insoluble fiber, but is broken down partially or completely by bacteria in the large intestine. Fermentable fibers are also called prebiotics. Many types of soluble fiber can act as prebiotics, a food fiber that grows in plants that feed healthy bacteria. Onions, garlic, and bananas are examples of where prebiotic soluble fiber can be found. Soluble fiber passes through the small intestine relatively unchanged until it reaches the colon, or large intestine, which is the part of your digestive system responsible for absorbing water from indigestible parts of food. It is here where fermentation of fiber occurs. Fermentation is the action of bacteria on prebiotic fiber, producing gases and short-chain fatty acids. When the friendly bacteria called probiotics, bacteria that keeps disease-promoting microorganisms from infecting your colon, ferments or digests the probiotic fiber, it produces many nutrients that help keep your colon healthy. The products of the fermentation stimulate your bowels, retain water in your stool, and bulk up your stool. Insoluble fiber passes through the colon relatively unchanged and helps bulk your stool. Fiber has many health benefits. The main function of fiber is to keep your digestive system healthy and working properly. Fibers that are fermented, or prebiotics, provide energy for the cells in your colon, promote the growth of good bacteria, and help with regularity insulin sensitivity, and keeping your immune system healthy. Besides aiding digestion, soluble fiber is associated with improving blood sugar levels by slowing down the absorption of sugar and lowering LDL cholesterol levels by absorbing the cholesterol, preventing it from entering your bloodstream. And soluble fiber helps improve your bowel movements and prevents constipation by softening and increasing the weight and size of your stool, making it easier to pass. A diet high in these types of fiber may reduce the risk of developing heart disease and some types of cancer. In addition, foods high in fiber can make you feel fuller longer so that you are less likely to overeat. In summary, the main function of fiber is to keep your digestive system healthy and working properly. Even though enzymes in your small intestines cannot digest dietary fiber, fermentable fiber, also called prebiotics, is fiber that is resistant to digestion in your small intestines, but is broken down partially or completely by bacteria in the colon or large intestine, which is the part of your digestive system responsible for absorbing water from indigestible parts of food. Fermentation is the action of friendly bacteria called probiotics on prebiotic fiber. When the friendly bacteria ferment or digest the prebiotic fiber, a food fiber that grows in plants that feed healthy bacteria, it produces gases, short-chain fatty acids, and many nutrients that keep your colon healthy.
All right, thank you, Maya. Okay, so according to a study done by Harvard Health, the average American adult consumes around 10 to 15 grams of fiber a day. We're gonna do a quiz now. You guys ready? Okay, I'm gonna have you guys raise your hands and we're gonna determine if that is enough fiber or if it's not or if it's too much. So raise your hand if you think that 10 to 15 grams a day for an adult is too much fiber. Raise your hand if you think it is adequate. Raise your hand if you think it is not enough. Everybody. Okay. Does anyone want to explain why they think that or defend their answer in any way? Yes. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. That's great. I love that. Anyone else? Does anyone want to guess how much fiber we need a day? All right. Oh, I heard numbers. 50? Okay. Anyone else? 25? I think I heard someone say 40 too. Okay. All right. So here is a chart of the average amount of fiber that someone needs by age group. And we did include children in there too, because children need different amounts of fiber than adults do. So males and females have different fiber requirements. For the average adult male, 38 grams of fiber is what's required until age 50. And then it's down to 30, I guess 51, but around 50. Goes down to 30. And then for females, it's going to be 25 is the average for an adult. And then when you hit age 50, it's going to go down to 21. So you guys are pretty close with some of your guesses. And you are absolutely right in saying that we need more fiber. And that is why we are doing this lesson right now. There are different cases. So pregnancy and lactation, 28 and 29 grams of fiber for women is what's needed. And again, these are averages. Per person, it is different, but these are around the grams of fiber that you'll need. Now, I know a lot of you in here want to get more fiber and you want to get enough fiber, but you probably don't want to count every single gram of fiber that you take into your body. That isn't very realistic. If that's what you like to do, then go for it. I do know some people that do that and it works very well for them. But for a lot of people, that's a lot of work. So There are some methods that we can take into account when determining what foods we should be eating, and which will help us get some more fiber in our diet. So the 5-20 rule is a great rule that applies to a lot of nutrients. And in this case, we're going to be talking about the fiber. So who can briefly describe to me what a daily value is on a food label? It's going to be this column down here. Who wants to give me a brief summary of what this is? Yes. Yes. No, that's perfect. So it's the percentage of how much the FDA has determined that we need a day of whatever nutrient. So we can see fiber right here. This particular unlabeled food, I don't know what it is, has 4 grams of fiber, which is 14% of our average needs. Now, we saw on the chart that people have very different needs. So the daily value is 28 grams when it comes to food labels. So that's important to keep in mind. Your needs might be lower than this and they might be higher than this, but again, we don't want to be counting every gram if we don't have to, because that's just not realistic for people. So the 5-20 rule says that, and again, this applies to a lot of nutrients, if a serving has less than 5% of the daily value, then it's not a very good source. And now that's not saying you shouldn't eat it. If you really like foods that have less than 5% of daily value of fiber, that's fine. You can just add foods with a little more fiber later on in the day or adding to it. But if a food has over 20% of your daily value, it's high in fiber. And we really want to try to increase high in fiber foods as much as possible. And again, works for many nutrients, and anything in between that 5 to 20%, it would be considered a good source of fiber. So right here on this example, we have 4 grams of fiber, and it's about 14% of our daily value, again, for 28 grams. So if I was a female, well, I am, this would be around what I'd need in a day, maybe a couple of grams over if I was to hit that 100%. And then if I was a male, it would maybe need a little bit more than getting to that 100%. So I'd want to try to, as much as possible, get higher fiber foods. And again, I just want to emphasize this is an average. Everybody's different. Everyone's needs are a little different, but this is a good amount to hit, especially when we're not trying to count every single gram of fiber. Okay, I know this can be a little bit confusing. Does anybody have any questions about this? Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's a good question. So higher fiber is not necessarily a bad thing. This is just like the minimum amount recommendation. And this is an average for both men and women and people of all different needs, just for the food label, because they don't want to make food labels for every single need that people have. But we will talk about a little later, higher fiber is not necessarily bad. This is just a thing that people should aim for. And as we discussed earlier, people don't get enough fiber in their diet usually. So aiming for 40 grams may not be realistic for a lot of people, but that's a good question. Thank you. All right. So excessive fiber intake. Now, like I said, there's a lot of nuance to this, but some symptoms, and many of you may have experienced this, I know I have in my life, but having a lot of high fiber food can lead to a lot of GI distress and bloating and cramping and general pain, just like if you have too little fiber. However, with consistent intake, these negative side effects can go away. So you have to be consistent with it, but eventually your large intestine, just like Maya was discussing earlier, does get used to the amount of fiber you're taking in. If you're having like 100 grams of fiber, super excessive, that may not go so well for you. But if you were to up it to, let's say 35, if you're a woman, or 40 grams, or even 45, there is actually not any evidence that this will do you any harm as long as you're consistent with it and your intake, and eventually these symptoms will go away. If they don't, you should probably consult your doctor about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. Switchy spots. All right, so we're now going to move into talking about fiber supplements because, as mentioned earlier, that fiber seems to be having a moment in the spotlight right now, and there are lots of different supplements on the market. And some of you may be asking, do I need a supplement? And so we're going to kind of talk about some pros and cons of supplements. First, the pros is that if you really are struggling to get in enough fiber, maybe you are battling some other kind of illness that you just can't eat enough in a day, then supplements can be a great option for you to make sure you're getting enough. And then it also is helpful if you have a lot of food allergies to foods that are high in fiber. This can be a good way to get in some extra help. And then also cooking fibrous foods or thinking that can take a lot of time and brain power. And so that can help ease the burdens of if you take a fiber supplement. Some cons is that fiber supplements lack some of the additional vitamins and minerals you get from consuming whole foods. So whole foods that have fiber in them also contain other nutrients that your bodies need, right? They have other vitamins and minerals, and they actually add more bulk to your stool. If you just take a fiber supplement, it's not adding quite as much bulk. You're not going to feel as satiated if you ate a bowl of oats than if you were to just take a capsule, you know? And so it does lack some of that benefit. Often, fiber supplements are just more expensive than whole food options. You could get the same thing, but it does take more time. And so that's something to think about. Also, a lot of the supplements that I was looking at, they are like take 5 capsules a day, and that's kind of a lot to remember to take throughout the day. So if you're forgetful like me, then it might not, be realistic for you. And then also, as Anne mentioned earlier, if you increase your fiber too much at once, then that can cause some GI discomfort and stress, and that can be easy to do with a fiber supplement because it can just be easy to take multiple pills at once. Yes. All right, so let's talk about some fiber supplements themselves. So I just kind of wanted to give some, these are just a few, there's many more on the market, but these are just a few that maybe you have seen or heard about before. And I just wanted to break down the price and the actual fiber content of these supplements to give you guys an idea. So as you can see here, we have Metamucil, and it is, this bottle of 160 capsules is almost, well, it's $27. And then it's about 86 cents per serving, and it only has 2 grams of fiber per serving. So that wasn't super great. But again, and the serving size is 5 capsules. So that is something to note. Fiber One bars, I remember my mom used to buy these all the time when I was growing up, and I think they taste really good because I love chocolate, so that's really fun. But as far as their fiber content goes, they're actually pretty high in fiber. They have 21% of the daily value. They have 6 grams of fiber. This box of 5 bars is almost $10. So you're paying about $1.95 for 6 grams of fiber, if that's what you're looking at. Of course, this also would have other nutrients in there too. And this one, it looks like it's a lower carb option, and so it doesn't have as much added sugar, so that's kind of fun. Then we have Benefiber over here. This is the gummy option. I was talking to somebody and they told me they just really love fiber gummies because they just think they taste really good. So I haven't actually tried these myself, but they taste really good apparently. This bottle is about $17. It's 63 cents per serving and 6 grams of fiber. So these gummies are pretty high in fiber. Before I move on to my next slide, where I talk about some foods high in fiber, I wanted to hear from you guys, maybe what are some foods that you already consume. We've learned a little bit about what foods have fiber from the video, but what are some foods that you feel like you could maybe add more into your diet instead of looking at a supplement, or maybe in addition to a supplement if you just wanted to add more fiber to your diet? What are some of your foods? Yes. Apples and raspberries. I love raspberries. They're so good. That's great. Those are both high in fiber. Yeah. Yes, chia seeds, they're little little seeds full of fiber, and they're really fun. I know people make chia pudding, and it just like turns into a really cool consistency. That's great. Any other favorite sources of fiber? Okay. All right. All right, so on here I just have a few different food swaps for fiber. Flax seeds. Flax seeds are a really good option. That's down here. You can add this into cookies or different recipes. You could add them into a smoothie, things like that. It has 3 grams per tablespoon. And then in addition, it also has 3 grams of protein per tablespoon. And it's about 24 cents per serving. So comparable to the fiber supplements, it's pretty comparable price-wise, and you also get some protein in there too, which would also help you to feel full longer. Chia seeds, which was mentioned, 10 grams of fiber per serving, 5 grams of protein, and then it also is a great source of calcium and potassium, and it's about 37 cents per serving. So that's pretty cool. And then oats, this is one of my favorites. I love having oatmeal in the morning, but has 4 grams of fiber per serving. It also has some good protein, and it can help lower cholesterol with all that fiber in there. And it's about 43 cents per serving. Yeah, I believe you can consume both. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I would think that the whole seed would have more fiber than if it's already been ground, right? Because your body has to digest the seed that's not been broken down. But if it is ground, it's not like there's no fiber in there. There's still a good amount of fiber, but the whole seed probably has more. Yes. Yes, that's a great point. That's why whole wheat bread that has a whole kernel of wheat in it, and I'll actually briefly go over that in a minute, um, is has more fiber than just white bread that's already been processed. But that's a great question. All right. So I'm just going to briefly go over some budget friendly tips to help you save money when you're trying to increase your fiber intake. So like was just mentioned, not all bread is created equal. And also if a label just says wheat bread, that does not necessarily mean it's whole wheat bread. You have to actually look on the nutrition facts label, and the first ingredient should say 100% whole wheat. And then you know, okay, this actually has the whole wheat seed in there. Otherwise, um, it just has the endosperm, which is this part right here that just white bread has, which is really high in carbohydrates and has some protein, but it lacks the fiber of the bran and the germ. And then another idea is to shop in bulk and to meal prep ahead of time. So if you go to the grocery store on Saturday, you can maybe go to Winco or Sam's Club or Costco and buy, those big things of oats or whatever your favorite fiber source is, and then meal prep it for the whole week. So then not every morning you're having to make oatmeal. You can make overnight oats in a big batch or whatever. You can cut up vegetables and have them ready to go. And then another thing is you can buy canned or frozen produce. Canned or frozen produce is not worse than fresh produce, and a lot of times it is less expensive, so that can be a great option as well. All right, and then you can also try making your own version of homemade grab-and-go options. Instead of buying the Fiber One bars, you can buy some of your own, buy some flax seeds or some chia seeds to add to your own granola bar recipe. Or you can make our hummus that we're going to show you later. And then the peels of produce actually has the most fiber. So if you like the peel, you can leave the peels on potatoes and cucumbers and apples, things like that. Another tip I have is to just try a little bit of one new food at a time, so that if you don't like it, you're not wasting a whole lot. But then if you do like it, then you know, and you can go back and continue to buy more. And then I feel like a lot of high fiber foods you might already have in your pantry, like oats. You might have some nuts and things that you have forgotten about, and those are high in fiber, cans of beans that you can just add in. And then Another tip I have is if you're making like taco meat or something, you can do half beans and half meat, and that will increase the fiber and satiety level and lower the cost because meat is more expensive. Yes. Yeah. So it does decrease a little bit of the fiber content, right? Because your body isn't having, or the benefit, because your body isn't having to break down the cellulose of the plant. It's already kind of ground up. So in that way, it does lose a little bit of the fiber content. But if you enjoy smoothies and that's how you're gonna get your fiber in, and that's really easy and grab and go option, that's still a great option. It still has some fiber. So yeah. There you go. Yeah, just add more fruit. There you go. Or you could sprinkle some, I don't know, granola on top or something like that too. All right. Well, we're going to move into our hummus demonstration and show you how you can make hummus at home, which is a great and inexpensive option to get fiber. You do have a recipe in front of you, but I'm just going to go over the ingredients briefly that you need, and most of them are pretty easy. You need some garbanzo beans. This was like 89 cents. I believe it uses 2 cans. So garbanzo beans are also known as chickpeas. And then you'll need some tahini, which if you don't know is usually by the peanut butter. But it's just ground sesame seed. But this also has, let me see. It also is a pretty good source of fiber as well. It has 4 grams per serving. And then you'll need some garlic. You can buy garlic cloves or the already minced kind. I like the minced kind because I hate mincing garlic, but you can definitely do that if you like it. Some lemon juice. And then you'll just need, also some olive oil. And then you'll just need a pan or a pot. You'll just need a tablespoon and a teaspoon, a couple of those, and then some kind of food processor or a blender to mash the chickpeas.
All right, so this recipe is actually super easy and it takes like half an hour and you can make a huge batch. Today we just tripled the recipe and we had tons and tons and tons of hummus. You can freeze it, you can do something with it, whatever you need. The recipe that you have in front of you just serves about 2 cups of hummus, but it's actually really good. So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is grab your 2 cans. You're gonna open them and pour the contents, don't drain it, straight into your pot. So you're gonna do this twice, and then you're gonna wanna cover the garbanzo beans with about 1 inch of cold water. And so then at that point, you're just gonna bring it to a boil on the stove and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. And while the rest of that is cooking, you can go ahead and prepare the rest of the recipe. And so what we did is we just added all of the rest of the ingredients into our food processor while this was cooking. So you're gonna need about 6 tablespoons of tahini and about 6 tablespoons of lemon juice as well. And so that used about this whole little container. And then at that point, you're gonna add either your 2 cloves of garlic or a clove of garlic is about a teaspoon of this minced garlic thing. So if you have this in your fridge, you can just use 2 teaspoons of this minced garlic. And in that, you just want to food process that for about 10 seconds, just so it's all together. And then once your chickpeas or your garbanzo beans have finished cooking and they are ready to go, you're going to want to strain them out, but reserve the liquid. So all the water that it boiled in, just put it off to the side, and then add your chickpeas into your food processor. And you can try to pulse it for a couple of seconds there. It might not be very easy to blend it because it's pretty thick. So at that point, you can add about a tablespoon at a time of that reserved liquid that you boiled your chickpeas in. And then it'll help it cream together and help it get smoother. And then once it's got a pretty creamy consistency, you're gonna add about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And then just run that through for an additional like 3 minutes. And then you can add whatever seasonings or spices or whatever your heart desires to the hummus. For this demonstration, we just added salt. We didn't add any other flavorings. And then you can pair it with whatever you'd like, and you can store it, you can freeze it, and you can do whatever you'd like with your hummus.
Awesome. Yeah. And this is less expensive than if you were to just go to the store and buy a thing of hummus. I love hummus and I noticed it's gone up in price a lot, but I love that hummus is so versatile because you can just we today have some whole wheat crackers and carrots, but you can also put it on wraps. You can use it in the place of mayonnaise. You can put it on sandwiches, whatever. You can just eat it with veggies. You can eat it plain if you really want to. So yeah, we'll pass out these samples so you guys can get a taste. Anne is going to talk more about the cookies.
You're probably wondering, why are these dietetic students going to give us cookies? So as you can see from the recipe that you have in your hands, these are oatmeal cookies. And if you don't like oatmeal cookies, that is understandable. Eat the regular cookies. But personally, I don't really like oatmeal in the morning for breakfast. It just isn't very good. I just don't like it. So if you're like me and you need other ways to get oats into your diet, adding that to cookies is a really good way to do that. So we just have some basic chocolate chip cookies here. We're not going to demo the recipe because you can just add oats into whatever recipe you want. It's about 2 cups of oats for 1 cup of flour that you need to take out. And maybe not like snickerdoodle cookies, but peanut butter cookies can go really good with oats. Chocolate cookies if you want to. You can chocolate chip. That's what we have right here. Thank you. And then you can blend up oats, add them to pancakes. You can add them to muffins, any baked good. Because the point we're trying to emphasize is that we want you guys to make realistic and sustainable changes. We don't expect you to go to the store and buy a bunch of new high fiber foods. Just working with what you have and what's available to you and with foods that you like. And hopefully most of you like cookies. All right. And thank you guys so much for coming. While we're distributing all the snacks and all the cookies, we're going to open up the floor to any questions that you may have. Yes. Yes, about. It depends on what you're making, and what consistency you like. We made a batch of cookies a while ago, for example, and we decided maybe a little more flour would make the cookie less chewy. But if you like chewy cookies, then you do less flour and more oats. You just can kind of experiment with it, but that's a good general rule. Yes. Ooh, that's a good question.
I feel like that's a really great question, but I guess most foods don't just have one type of fiber in them. For example, carrots have both soluble and insoluble fiber. So I feel like as long as you're eating a well-balanced diet or a well-balanced meal, you're probably going to be getting a good source of all the different kinds of fiber. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So with produce, they obviously don't come with food labels most of the time. So you might just have to look up that for a lot of fruits and vegetables, a serving is about 3 grams of fiber. There are some exceptions to that, like avocado is like 7 grams per serving. Avocado is extremely high in fiber. But so for packaged foods, if you're going to the store and you need to decide between 2 cereals, you can just kind of look at the percent daily value that the cereals have. So if one has like 18% and the other has 12%, if you like them both, you might opt for the one with 18%. So just trying to choose higher daily value percentage foods. And then if it's over 20%, it's considered a high fiber food. And that's actually like a term that can be used for pretty much any nutrient that it's high in whatever, but it needs to be a certain percentage of the daily value. So it's just mostly focusing on the daily values as opposed to the grams of fiber. But good question. Anyone else? Yes.
So the soluble fiber is good for.
Yes.
It will usually say on the label, like the Metamucil, it said it was a 3-in-1. So I believe that had a couple of different types of fiber in there, but different supplements will have different kinds. But usually they'll have both insoluble and soluble fiber, but you'll just have to read the label because each supplement is very different. That's a good question. They are probably at Costco. I myself have not bought them, but the ones that I looked up, they were on Amazon, but I think I also saw they were at Walmart, so I could assume that they had, there's probably a Kirkland brand as well. So, yeah, yeah, exactly. Good point. Yeah, I was looking at that, and beans and legumes have, I think, somewhere between 8 to 14 grams. Legumes were slightly higher in fiber than just like a can of black beans. And then, for example, these chickpeas, where'd they go? These chickpeas have 6 grams per half a cup. And I think black beans might have like 7 grams or something. So it is a little different, but generally they're all pretty high. Great. Yes.
Yeah, so probiotics, basically the idea is you want to get enough to like feed the bacteria in your gut. But so like yogurt drinks and stuff, those have a lot of other things in them as well, kind of like we mentioned earlier. So that might have like a lot of lactose, which might not be good for your system. There's not necessarily like a limit to as much like probiotics that you can get, but you just want to be aware, like if you're drinking like 17 cups of that yogurt stuff, that's obviously going to cause some issues, not necessarily because of the probiotics, but just because of the sugar that's added in those things, and like probably the lactose might cause some issues as well. So it's not necessarily like a limit on probiotics, I would say, but you'd want to look at the label and what else is in there.
Just with that and with excessive fiber in general, it is very hard to get excessive fiber. Like we said earlier, you can have negative side effects for a while if you're trying to increase your fiber intake. There have been records of people having very serious problems that send them to the hospital from excess fiber intake, but from the ones I read, they had like an entire bottle of those Metamucil caplets in like the span of 48 hours. That's one that I read. You'd have to be pretty excessive with your fiber intake. So we don't want you guys to be scared of that.
So prebiotics is basically all of like what it does in your gut. So there's fiber that's going to feed your gut bacteria, which is a prebiotic. So it's like the gut fiber, the little bacteria that are in your colon already, it's going to feed that. And then probiotics is just specifically like those little bacteria that you're drinking to get them down into your digestive system. So one of them is food for the bacteria and the other one is the bacteria. And if there's no other questions, I think it might be easiest if just on your way out, we'll go ahead and distribute the cookies, but we'll be here for a little bit. If you have any other questions or anything that you'd like to ask or anything like that, we'll be here for a second. But I think, yeah, we'll turn it over.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Let's go ahead and give them a hand.